Hi everyone, how's it going? Welcome to this scenario method event from Enterprise DNA. Looking forward to jumping into this one, but we'll just wait a little bit just to make sure everyone who wants to come live can get on the call or can get on the on the webinar. I hope everyone's well. And hopefully you're enjoying a lot of the content that we're putting out there around Power BI. Really enjoying putting it together, and hopefully you're getting a lot out of it. Lots of cool stuff coming today, and also in the future. Got a lot of great plans in place around some further events, and also some upgrades, and also some brand new content for the for Enterprise DNA Online. So looking forward to getting that out to you when I can. Okay, so really interesting session coming up today around project management. I've had this requested a few times around how you actually do it, and I had to play around with a few ideas, honestly, to make sure that I created something that was worthwhile, creating an event around. And I really think I've landed on something pretty special around how you can visualize project management work really effectively in Power BI. And I haven't seen anything like this anywhere around how you can represent it visually and make it just look so compelling for people or for users who need to be dealing with this sort of data. Historically, especially around sort of Gantt charts, because this is a big chart for project management. Sort of visually seeing what sort of projects you got coming out, and I've really devised this, and it's only been possible because of a lot of recent updates in Power BI, by the way. But I've really devised how you can create these within matrix or matrices really well. And I'm going to work through all of that's going to be the bulk of what we do. We're going to work through the logic behind how you actually create it. And by doing that, I'm going to go over a lot of formula techniques, but also visualization techniques that can really make things look compelling. We'll also go through some modeling, because we've got to get our model set up correctly to be able to make this work. And then some other visualization ideas and formula ideas as well. So there'll be so much to learn. Even if you don't specifically working with a project management type data set, you will learn so much during this session, because I've got so many tips to talk to you about, and so many cool ideas that you like in combination can make a really big difference to the reports that you're creating. Okay, so enough for me. I'll probably jump into it pretty soon. Just on this one, I'm really gonna. I got a lot I want to cover today. So I'm really just going to focus in on the content here. This usually works pretty well. If you do have questions, though, just shout out. I've got some of the Enterprise DNA team who can help you, and happy to provide as much information as we can as we're going. So so let's kick into it, and certainly reach out, and I hope that you enjoy working through this content. I'm confident you will. There's just so much I want to talk to you about, some just really cool ideas and techniques, utilizing some of the newest features that have come out around Power BI. So cool. So let's jump into it, I think. Appreciate you all coming along as always, and hopefully you really enjoy these particular member-only sessions. Quite a lot of effort goes into just even one webinar for these, so hopefully you enjoy them and see the value in them. Okay, I'm going to switch over to my screen, and we will jump into it. Okay, just bear with me 1 second. Okay, let's dive into things here. As mentioned, quite a bit I want to cover. So I'll just kick into it, and we will divert to where we need to at the right time. But let's just have a look at the dashboard here first, just to see what it's actually showing. So in this particular dashboard, and you'll see why in a second, we're showing soonish when I go over it, we're showing upcoming projects for the next 100 days. Okay, so that's how we've created it here. But the 100 days starts from any selection that you make. So say for example, I want to start on this day, we will see all of the projects which are currently live based on this date selection I've made. And what you'll find is everything will update based on this date selection that you make. So it's kind of like a dynamic sort of project management chart where you can jump between different time frames to see which projects you have on at any one time in the future, or from a forecasting perspective, or you can go back historically as well. And so a lot of it sort of depends on the data you have, but in terms of how I've done it here, it was possible, right? So I wanted to enable, I wanted to say I was coming in and looking at a project. I wanted to say, okay, well, this is what it looks like in its current state, but what will it look like potentially in, say, a month's time? Will I need different resourcing at that time based on which areas of the project we are in? And so you can really focus your energies and resources more appropriately if you are able to do that sort of forecasting. And then I also have some headline numbers here, so we can say, okay, current live tasks is how many tasks, because we've got a number of different projects here as well. So it's not just sort of one project, it's many different projects happening at the same time within the one organization. How many tasks we've completed out of all of the things we've got to do. This is showing estimated cost by project. This is saying total amount of tasks still to do by category, I think is that one. And then this is sort of resourcing by color. So we also have a color range within our data for each project task, saying where it's at, right? And that's what all these different colors are within this visualization here. And so this was one of the hardest parts about how to actually integrate the colors into this visualization, and I'm going to show you how I did that shortly. But what we can do, we can click on, say, any different project, and the visualization will update just for that project, and we can drill into that particular project and all the different tasks, etc., for that particular project. So there is a lot going on here. The other thing that's really interesting, and another great technique, which I'll show you when we dive into this formula, is we also have completion rates, and you can see here that there's actually different. I'll just zoom in for a second. There's actually different colors within this Gantt chart, right? We've got where we're currently at from a completion perspective on each different project, and so adding that in as well was quite a task, but it just adds that much more color to your, excuse the pun, color to your visual. So all of those techniques we will cover, and you're going to see how this here is a matrix visual. I'm going to show you how we were able to create something like this just from a matrix visual using a number of techniques. And so you can be, say, selected on a project, right? And then we can actually really drill into that one project. So I've actually used quite a few visual things as well here. Some were because I really had to actually make the visual work, but a lot of just interesting visualization techniques, which I think you'll get a lot out of. Okay, so let's just if I can find the data here as well. I'll just open the data. Just give me a second. Let's just actually have a quick look at the data too. So it's basically a relatively simple table. Okay, so we have our projects, our project name, tasks, task categories. The key here is we have a start and we have an end date. Okay, so we're going to be dealing with multiple dates in our fact table. So this is a very common scenario, and you need to solve for it in your data model. Then we have a color based on where the project's at. We have how many resources are on each different project, the estimated costs, and the percent to completion. So I think this is a relatively sort of common structure for project management. You might have some slight differences, but this is relatively common in terms of the information in the table. But it's a pretty simple table, right? It's nothing too complex, and this is really actually the only table of information for this particular dashboard. Right. Okay, so first of all, obviously you would need to go to the query editor and bring this in. Okay, that never changes. That's always the first thing to do. You bring it in. I've also brought in the dates table, so that's another key table you always need, right? Anytime we're working with dates, you need a date table. Also, I've got these measure groups here, so I haven't actually created it, so I'm just going to go measure groups. And I'll move this one in there as well. And so what you'll find is that this one here, this is actually our data model. This is all it is. So I'm just going to create a new group here and go to data model. And now that's what I have. I have my project data, which is the table we brought in, that I showed you in Excel, and then we have the dates table. Okay, so let's just close and apply those. Right. So now we need to work out, okay, well, what model should we have here? Okay, and this is the so key when dealing with multiple dates. Okay, so let's drill into here. So whenever you are working with multiple dates inside of your fact table, so you have a start date and you have an end date, or you have a ship date and you have an invoice date, all of those sort of things, you want to be utilizing inactive relationships down to those dates from the date table. Okay, now this is what you need to do every single time, especially if you want to work out or calculate results sort of using both those dates at the same time, because you've got to think in our visualization, especially our Gantt chart, we need to utilize the start and end date at exactly the same time. Now if we have one active relationship here, it's going to throw all of our results out, and we need to be able to basically within a formula go and work with these particular relationships. Within a formula we're going to do it rather than physically with a active relationship. Okay, so you should all have this particular resource, right? So I do recommend working with this resource as well if you can, or at least having a look through it whilst I'm going through it, because I think that will certainly help if you do that, because some of the things we'll go through now, they're relatively advanced, right? So so being able to have sort of a resource there, just have a look at the formulas, etc., and how they're set out is a good idea. Okay, so I created in terms of the demo model, I've created a number of different measures here. It's actually not that many difficult ones. A lot of them are just like really simple setup ones. Okay, so the first one I'm going to show you is that say for instance I created this particular date filter, right? So all I did here was I just took the date from the date table and I turned it into a filter, or a slicer, sorry. But what I also did was I changed the way that this worked. So it's not between days, it's actually just sort of one date, right? And so the way you do that is you've actually got to turn on the slicer header to actually see it. But there's actually this drop down here, and I selected after here because what I wanted to do is I wanted to just basically get one date selection. I wanted to know what was the first date we want to review our projects, and then look at everything after that. Okay, and so I changed it to after, and then that sort of grays out the other number there, and then I turned the slicer header off because it's pretty obvious what this is, and I've named it over the side here. Okay. Now, from here, what we need to do is we need a simple formula that basically retrieves this date that we select. So, say for instance, we change the selection. We just want a simple formula that recognizes that. And look, this is very easy. All you need to do is go min dates, and that's always going to retrieve the min date in the reporting context. So whenever you change your date slicer there, it's basically just going to always get that date that you change it to, because it's going to go and find the min. Okay, and so that's basically where I started. So that's always going to be my starting point. Okay. Now I want to work through this logic here. Okay, so I'll show you the end formula. This is the end formula that I created. Now, if you've listened to any of my videos and gone through the course content at Enterprise DNA Online, you'll know that I'm a big user of measure branching. Okay, now I have not done it in this case, but in this end formula. But I will tell you that I did build out a lot of these individual parts to this formula into other measures originally. Okay, I originally did that. But then I came back in here and I aggregated it all up to one, into sort of one master measure. And that is actually something I've been doing a little bit recently, just purely to clean up my models if I have to do anything slightly more advanced. Because if you think this formula looks like a lot, right? And if you had all of these in singular measures, I just thought, well, they're all quite simple calculations, and putting them inside of variables, cleaning up my model just in general, not having so many measures, probably was more appropriate in this particular case. So that's something to have a bit of a think about, and it is something that I've evolved to for these more advanced formulas. Now, the reason why this became so advanced is basically because there was so much I wanted to do within one visualization. I had to build up to actually create it. And what I mean by that is, in this matrix visual, first of all, I needed to work out, okay, well, how do I show the all of the data points from the start and the finish? But then also I needed to work out, well, how do I show where we're sort of up to completion, and then have a different color for all the way to the end date, from to visually show like how much we have to go until we actually complete this task. And so all of those things were quite complex, and it was all just to be able to create that visual the way I wanted. And so to me it just felt honestly better to have it in one formula. That's sort of the summary there. But I'm going to show you how I built this up though. Okay, just to give you a good idea how to do it. Okay, so let's jump into that now, I think, and because we have to spend a bit of time here just running through a lot of the logic. I've got another page here set up. And so what we're going to do is I'm just going to work through how I created that matrix. Okay, so let's just do a little bit of setup here. So I'm going to grab my project name. I'm going to grab my task category. I'm going to grab my task. I'm also going to grab my start date and also my end date. Okay, so let's put these over here. Now what I'm also going to do though is I'm going to turn this into, because currently it's actually a table, and I want to turn this into a matrix. Okay, and so we get this really weird, it's looking like nothing at the moment, but all you have to do to fix this is I want to show everything, right? So I'm just going to expand down to the every category. And what I also realize is that this needs to be dragged up there as well. Okay, so now we have this stepped layout front matrix. Now I also don't want this, so I'm just going to go into the formatting area, go row headers, and then change from step layout on to off. Okay, and so now I have exactly how I wanted it, right? Okay, so what's actually hidden in behind here, which is quite difficult to see, is how basically I've been able to create a visual with colors from a start to an end date, but then also have these dates up here. Okay, so even when I change this date to a different start date, you'll see that these dates change, and then this visualization changes as well to reflect the date I've selected. So this was the difficult part, how to think about setting this up so that it was dynamic. Okay, now what I needed to do, I didn't want to have dates all across the top here in this matrix. Okay, because it wasn't dynamic enough. Okay, so basically what I needed instead was I needed numbers. I needed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc., etc., because I wanted those numbers to update. So there was, so 1 was always the first, column here, and then so on and so forth. So it always was chronologically 1 to whatever. Now to do that, what I needed to do was I needed to create another table here, which I've called days. Okay, it's a really simple table. Let's have a look at it. All I did was I used the new parameter feature, but you could also just write this simple function here, generate series, and I just have a days range of 0 to 200 in this particular example. So you see here, it just goes all the way down to 200. And what I did was I then went and grabbed that particular column and I dragged it into the matrix. Okay. Now, check out what happens when I do this though. Okay. Now remember that this particular table has absolutely no relationship to anything in here. It's just something I want to put in the matrix so that I can visually try and work out, okay, well, when was there a project live versus complete, or should have been complete, and we're gonna have to create some logic to actually see that. But and the reason why is because there's no relationship between these two tables. So if I go and drag this days field into the columns area, or the columns parameter for this visual, check out what happens. I actually don't get any results here. But that's correct. There shouldn't be any results because there's basically no relationship at all between those two tables. But this is where we can create formula which solves it for us. Okay. Okay, so let's have a work through this particular formula here. Okay, so we've got a few variables here, and then we've got some logic under the return. Let's have a look at this particular logic in the variables first. Okay, so think about, and this is just like a key thing to do with DAX, is you have to think about every single result individually. Okay, so think about that matrix. Think about every single result in that matrix. We need, within that particular matrix, we need to work out what day we are actually in, right? Okay, so what day we are in. Then we need to work out how many days the project goes for. Okay, so I've called this one project days, and all I've said is okay, what's the max date, so the max end date, and minus the max start date. These could also be mins, it doesn't really matter, but this is just enabling me to grab those particular dates and work out the difference between them, and the day difference between them. Okay, because you've got to remember, in this matrix, every single row here had the start and end date, so both of these particular columns are in that context for every single result, and we're just working out what they are. Then what we need to do is we needed to work out, well, how many days from the actual selected date we are. Okay, so I've gone start date minus the selected date. Because if you think about that, what we need to do is we need to work out the starting point. So say, for instance, we are selected on the very first date. Well, we need to work out how many days until the basically the start of that project, and that's going to give us a day amount that we can use to within our visual to work some logic into it. Okay, and then what I needed to do was I needed to work out the days from start date plus how many days the project went for, because you've got to remember, I'm just trying to work out the numbers here. I'm not sort of really caring about dates. I'm caring, okay, well, what date is selected, then I want to work out how many days until the project actually starts, and then how many days from the project start date does the project actually end. And all I've done is I've said days from start date plus how long the project actually is for each individual project. Okay, so this is how I'm turning actual dates into sort of numbers. Okay, I just realized that we could actually change this. We don't actually need max days here. We can actually use current day. Okay, because we already have this as a variable. So I'll just change this. It might be updated on your model already. Okay, so then the logic we have here so then think about, okay, in every single result here, we now have a number of the day. Okay, I'm going to go, is the current day, so if and is the current day greater than or equal to the days from start date? So I've got a number here, and is the current day less than or equal to the days from end date? And that's going to be my number here. Okay, if it is, both those things evaluate to true, then I want a 1, if not a 0. Okay, so let's drag this into the matrix, and I'll show you what results we're getting, and we'll go over that formula again. So I'm going to grab my step 1, I'm going to grab it into my values here. Okay, so let's so quickly, I know we've got all these stupid subtotals in here, right? So we want to get rid of those. So I'm going to come into here and go column headers. No, actually, sorry, we want to go subtotals, right? I'm going to turn both those off. Okay, so check this out now. Check out, we have all of these ones based on where, if based on a number now, right? Okay, based on a number. And so we know that, so second of the first, right, is what day is selected in this particular report page. We know that this one starts on the 5th of the 1st, so that's 3 days after that selected date. And so we have on the third day, number 3, we now have a 1, because that's what our logic is producing for us. Then we also know that this particular project goes for, say, 23 days after the start date. And so if you come all the way down here, you'll see that this actually ends on the 26th day, which is correct. So it's gone, so that logic in behind the scenes has gone, okay, well, how many days is the start date from the selected date? It's 3 days. And then how many days does the project go for? And then it works out, okay, well, the project goes for 23 days, which takes us to 3 plus 23 equals 26. And then that's the last day of the project. Okay. So it's a pretty cool logic, right? Pretty cool logic. Now there's still a bit to go, because we're still, we're still not, we still haven't, visually made it look any good. It's pretty difficult to understand, still what's happening here with this particular visual, right? I'll see if I can just sort these correctly. Okay, so what we have now is we have 1s and 0s in our matrix, right? Okay. Now I want to show you a really cool feature that's relatively new, but basically we can now actually color in matrices and tables with rules, with actual rules. Okay, and so what we can do is we can come into the back here. We can go conditional formatting, and sorry, that's not what you do. That's not what you do it. You actually do it here. You come into the drop down here in the value section, and you go conditional formatting. And what I want to do is I want to go background color. Okay. So this will bring up this pop-up box, and if you go format by rules here, we can now format based on a variety of different measures or calculations we have in our model. In this particular case, I'm just going to do it by step 1 here, and I'm going to go if it equals to 1. So if the value equals to 1 in our matrix, I want to equal to that color. Then I'm going to go add if, and because I know it's just 1 or 0 based on the logic that I put in that formula, right? If it is, say, 0, well, then I want to actually make this white, for example. Okay, then I'm going to go OK. And so now you can start to see how we're building this up, right? We're building this up in a way that enables us to see visually now in color how our projects are laid out. Just based on that table, we've basically flipped it into a pivoted format just from a simple table like this with just start and end dates. So it's quite fascinating, right? quite fascinating how that actually works and how you can actually do it in Power BI. Okay, so we've got let me just undo the hierarchy here again. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, now one of the restrictions I want to show you, which is a bit annoying at the moment, is, well, I think there's a reason why there's a restriction. I think this is a good time to go over it. Now, the matrix visual actually only allows you to go for 100 columns. You can't go over 100 columns. I only realized this once I had actually created it. So even though you might have projects that go for a longer period of time, it does restrict you to only 100 days if you use days. But say, for instance, your project management or your projects, you worked over a longer time frame. Well, I think what you would probably do here is you would just aggregate differently. So instead of saying days, you would probably aggregate over weeks or aggregate over months or something like that. And your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will be based on that logic, not on a daily logic. And so you would just need to play around with the formula so that it wasn't sort of just at a daily level like I've created it here. Okay, so it still doesn't stop you from doing it. It's just you have to think about things just a little bit more differently around how you implement it. Now, the other, I would say, almost annoying thing here, you might have noticed that that this actually doesn't sit within sort of one report area, like we've got a scroll bar here, like I have in this particular visualization here. So you see how this visual sort of just sits in the one report area and looks quite nice. Now, you wouldn't believe this, but at the moment there is actually no way to change the column size of every single column at the same time. Now, I didn't even know this myself when I was working through this. And so what you actually need to do, and I know this is very frustrating, but you've got to remember you only have to do this once, is that you actually need to go in and individually change every single column size like this. And this is exactly what I did. So I went and changed every single column like this so that they were of a similar size. So it's a little bit, it's a little bit of work. It's a little bit annoying. I can honestly admit that. But this is basically what I had to do to actually make it look like a make it look like it sort of worked within my visual, because I didn't like the scroll bar or anything. So that's basically what I had to do. But you got to remember, once you have this set up, that's it. It's not like you're going to recreate it every single time. And I do also believe that there is an idea, this is an idea Microsoft are looking at, how you can auto size these particular visuals. So hopefully, maybe if you're watching this on replay later on, they have actually updated that, so it just makes it that a little bit easier. It should be in this formatting area, but it is unfortunately not at the present time, at the time they're recording this. Okay. Now, the other thing you can do is, and I forgot to show you, is that you can also change the font color as well. So, and you can do very similar way to we did it before. So if it's equals to 1, then we want to make it this color. And if this is equal to 0, I want to make it white. And so what this is going to do is it's going to totally get rid of the the numbers in the visual as well, and then it becomes just basically the colors. There's a little bit of other work that I did on colors as well, which I can show you shortly, but I just want to go through a bit more of this formula logic as well. Okay, so let's have a look at the table here. We have this completion number. Okay, this is where things got a little bit trickier around the formula. Got the logic in there first of all, and I thought, okay, this looks pretty cool once you have it all set up, but I actually want more. I want more information. I want to understand what color we have, sort of just where projects are at. I also want a completion visual as well, just to see, so someone can come in and see immediately how things are going visually around how projects are tracking. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, let's actually bring this measure in first, and so we can have a look at it. Okay, so this part of the formula is exactly the same. Okay, so so there's no difference there. Okay, this is where things get a little bit different, right? We need to take into account what color the project is at, which is in our data. Then we also need to take into account the completion. Okay, so once again, think about the context of every single result here. Okay, so if we just look at this particular result here as well, okay, this one here, we will know based on that particular, based on the context of that particular result, what color it is, and we can work out that color by going selected value color, the color column. Okay, and so in this particular case it's going to be blue, just because blue is the only one showing in this visual based on this logic down here. But if there was, and you'll see shortly, this will basically just pick up what the color is. This is picking up, this average here is picking up the completion. Instead of using max or min here, I've just done a placeholder with average instead. And I've said, okay, what is my completion for every single task we have here? Now that we have a completion, right, we have a number which we can build into our logic. Okay, so remember before we basically needed to turn dates into days. Okay, so we needed to work out when the project started from our selected date and when the project ended from our selected date, and then we just went days from start date plus project days, and this gave us the daily numbers, or the numbers in which it started and in which it ended, and then we, based on that, we worked out, okay, what was 1 and what was 0. But now that we have a completion number, so this is like a percentage, right? It's like 80% or 70% or 50%. What we need to do is we need to break out this particular difference here. No, actually, sorry, this particular difference here, the difference between the start and the end. And we need to say, well, what is the start? So say, for instance, this was 30 days. The difference here was 30 days, and our completion on the project was 50%. Well, from the days from start date to our completion percentage is 15 days. And then we need to work out from the completion percentage to the end date how many days that is, and that's 15 days again. Okay, so we're basically just throwing something in the middle of the of these numbers that we have here. So we're trying to break out days from start date to completion, the current completion percentage, and then current completion percentage to the end date of the project. Okay, and that's basically what I've done here. I've said, okay, well, days from start date plus project days times the completion percent. So this is going to, say for instance, it's 80%, well, we're going to get 80% of the entire project is basically completed. And so we're going to work out, okay, well, how many days to that particular point. Okay. Then what I've done here is I've used similar logic to what we had under return before. And I worked out to completion logic is the max day. This could also be current day. So why don't I change this around? So is the current, and this is the number, remember, is the current day greater than or equal to the start date, and is the current day less than or equal to the days to completion? Is the start date greater than the days to completion? And is the, not start date, is the current day less than or equal to the end date? Okay, so it's exactly the same logic as we had down here before, but I'm breaking it out. I need to work out the two different parts to the project up to the percentage complete, and from the percentage complete day to the end day. Okay, then once we have this logic in place, we can go through a switch true. We can say if the progress color is equal to blue, so if the color is equal to blue, if to completion logic is true, so if this evaluates to true, then equal to 1. If the end date logic equals to 2, is true, sorry. If the end date logic is equal to true, then make it 2. And that's how within the same project now we have different numbers. So I've got 1 which leads up to the sort of completion percentage, and then the 2s are from the percentage completion to the end date. So I can now see visually how this differs. Okay, and then how this works is that we can come in here, and how this then works in the actual visualization is, again, I just come in here and I do some conditional formatting, and then I just format it slightly differently, and I say, okay, well, if this is equal to 1, then I want to equal to this color. If this is equal to 2, I'll just zoom in for you. If this is equal to 2, well, I want to actually make this a lighter color. Okay, then we can go add, and then if this is equal to 0, then we want this to equal to, say, let's just go a different gray or something like that. Then I go OK. And so now you can see that there's different colors because of the logic that we have implemented in here. So we can see visually now this particular task, say, started basically starts on the selection date. It is probably about sort of 80% complete by the look of it, because it's only got, say, an estimated 2 days left in terms of what to do. Okay. Now, obviously, this is very, very arbitrary numbers. These are just made up numbers, so yours might look very different. But hopefully, you're starting to see the logic around how you can make this work in a matrix. And then, obviously, you just have to continue to. I would honestly work out the logic first before you go and visually change up things, like what I did. But totally up to you, basically, totally up to you. But you would find it very difficult to work out all of these things without being able to see the numbers. I would imagine. To sort of audit the numbers, etc. Okay. Now, so I did a very similar thing there, right, in this particular visualization to what we've just gone through. It's exactly the same. I've just extended the logic. Okay, so let's just have a look at this final measure. I know we've been spending a bit of time on this one. Let's have a look at this final measure here. Okay, so this basically is exactly the same. This is exactly the same logic as was before, but what I've done is I've just added more colors in here. Okay, so this is how more colors and different numbers. Okay, so I've got a 3, I've got a 5 and a 6, a 7 and an 8, 7, 9 and a 10, 11 and a, oh, that's not right, that should be 11 and 12. Okay, and so I've just extended it using switch true to change up the and then obviously I've gone in and done conditional formatting for all those different colors as well. Okay, and so my conditional formatting around my backgrounds and my font color is just that little bit more extended. Okay, so let's just come back to here. So hopefully you've enjoyed working through that formula logic, right? This is how I've created this visualization, this compelling visualization of a Gantt chart. I've made a lot of other changes to the matrix as well, though. Okay, and to make this actually look not too overdone, or not like information overload. So because I didn't actually utilize dates at all, right? I utilized days. Okay, well, I didn't want to show those days. I wanted to show actual dates. Okay, so what I did was I basically grayed out every single header here. So the headers are actually their colors are exactly the same as the background, so they just melt into the background. You can't actually see them. And instead, what I did was I actually used cards, and this is just where you just need a little bit of imagination. I used cards to actually input the dates here, so that we could actually see the dates, even though they aren't inside of the visualization. But we know where each date is because it's just a numbered day, right? And so all I did for this was I had my selected date, and then I said, okay, well, let's go selected date plus 33. Okay. Then I went, because I know there's only 100 days inside of my matrix, right? And then I did selected date plus 66. Okay. And then I did, I think, the same for the end. So where is this one actually? End date, end visual date. Okay, and then I went in visual date, selected date plus 100. And so we know, so even though we don't see the dates in this matrix, we just know based on these numbers what they represent based on the selected date we have. And so I just aligned cards in the correct place. And then what I did as well is I overlaid I overlaid this just a line visual here. So instead of actually seeing every individual grid, which is a bit overbearing in that matrix, I then just have these simple sort of line. It's just a simple shape line that I've overlaid on top of the matrix to sort of just visually show you where you are from a date perspective. And that obviously that doesn't need to change. It will just adjust. These will just show you where you are at based on the based on the selection that you're making. Okay, a few more things before we round things off here, because we've gone through quite a lot here, but hopefully you're getting a bit of inspiration here. This is a big part of these particular sessions is inspiring you in terms of like what you can achieve. Okay, and so now, because we have these inactive relationships, right? Say we did actually want to calculate something based on a filter here. Okay, this is where we use the use relationship function. So this is something you should become relatively familiar with. Okay, so say for instance we wanted to turn on these relationships, but do it virtually. We can use the use relationship function and just put in the date, the columns from each different table that we want to make active again. Okay, and so in this particular case, this is where we want to see. Okay, we can see the overall cost of the project, but I want to see how many costs are basically live from the date, from within the date selection. So for example, like how many costs we have left, and that's what that particular measure actually does for us. So I can change the date time frame, and you'll see that the project costs are going down because we don't have as many projects left to actually do. Okay, then also we've got current completed tasks here, so this is another one. So basically in this one I need to work out, well, how many projects, so count how many projects have a project end date less than the selected date, and then that's going to show us when a task is actually ended, right? And that enables me to count up how many are actually completed, and then to work out how many are sort of live, we just need to go total projects minus these ones, right? So total projects minus how many projects have ended. Or you can do a similar sort of thing like this, where you go count rows, is the end date greater than the selected date? If it is, then that's obviously still a live project. I guess you've also got to remember, and where my data isn't really live, this will always be updating, right? So if you're getting this from a database, or you're getting this from some sort of system, internal system that you have, this will obviously be updating, and you'll be getting revised dates and and completions, etc., costings, based on what's being input. Okay, so I think that's really all I wanted to show you there. I'll show you just sort of what this actually looks like in its finished state. So you got to remember, I've gone and manipulated every single column here into a really tiny column, and so you can see that it does take a little bit of work to do that. What I have here in terms of my conditional formatting, so check this out, is a little bit more complex, obviously. So let's go and have a look. So you'll see here that I've done the rules, but then I've just got a lot more logic built in here, all the way down to 12. And I've done the same for the fonts. And then what I've also done is I've just made sure that the backgrounds of all of these, of this particular matrix, the background to this matrix is also the same color as the background. So actually, I don't think that needs to be transparent. I don't think it really matters actually, because it's such a dark color. But I play around a lot with colors, right, and try and make things look good. I think it's a very, very important part of creating good reports inside of Power BI is utilizing colors really well. I say this all the time. This is sort of the one key thing missing from a lot of good reports, right? Might have good insights, but visually doesn't look that appealing. And people like looking at visually appealing things. Just trust me on that. Okay, I think I'm going to round it off there, and I'll just flip back to me, and we'll conclude the session. Okay, just bear with me. Okay, everyone. What did you think? What did you think about that one? Really cool example, right? There was a lot of sort of funky DAX logic that we went into there, but also some really great visualization techniques, which I hope that you hopefully I've expanded your mind there around how you can utilize these techniques in lots of different ways. You know, those conditional formatting rules really open up this whole new world of color manipulation that you can do inside of Visual. So a really valuable thing to really dive into and really learn a lot about. You know, and I personally I actually want to dive into it more as well and think about how I can manipulate things quite more dynamically within those conditional formatting within that conditional formatting area. Okay, so hopefully you enjoy this one. Hopefully you got some help on the chat if you had any questions as well. I really just wanted to focus in on the content there. There's quite a when you talk about some of those more advanced things, I think it's just good to just really focus in on it rather than getting a bit distracted on questions, etc. It really adds a bit more value to everyone who's listening. But don't hesitate if you didn't get your question answered here to pop onto the forum as well. I'm happy to answer anything there in time too. Okay, I think we'll just wrap it up. Really appreciate you coming along. Another really great session. I really enjoyed building up this particular resource, just to see what was possible. With some of the new features and how you can deal with project management and event type data. So hopefully you got a lot of ideas out of this one, a lot of inspiration, and can implement some of it on your own reports. Righto. Thanks again, and wishing you all the best, and look out for some more information from me about some follow-up events, and also check out our events page as well at enterprisedna.co. There's plenty of events coming up, a lot more member ones as well that I'm working on and want to get out to you. So don't forget to check those out. Okay, all the very best. Take care. Thanks a lot. Look forward to next time. See you later.